guys, thank you so much for coming on. It is Sarah at carnivore.yogi here on YouTube, Instagram. I have a really special guest on today. She is an expert on the thyroid, and I've asked her on today to talk specifically about women and even men too that have started doing carnivore or keto, low carb type of diets to help with thyroid issues, and maybe have started experiencing some thyroid issues that they didn't have before, or just running into trouble. So I'm going to let her jump on, talk about her story a little bit, and then that's really what we're going to talk more about in this video, because I think it's just some, people with low T3, just different issues people are running into that I want to talk about in this video. So thank you again for coming on. Let's let everyone know who you are and kind of your background with thyroid, how you became an expert in and all of that stuff.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks for having me on. So I became an expert accidentally because I went through so many doctors in LA and I suffered for years and went to, 24 plus doctors. No one could figure it out. They hurt me, didn't help me. They misdiagnosed me. It was a total disaster. So I finally took my health into my own hands and was like, that's it. And once I realized what it was and I finally got properly diagnosed, which took me $600 for the appointment and then like another 300 for some famous celebrity, celebrity's hormone doctor, just BS. And once they finally were like, oh, you're seriously hypothyroid. And I saw the levels and I learned enough by then. I thought, that's it. I'm not letting a doctor treat this because they don't know what they're doing. And they didn't. So I had to dose myself back to health. I did that twice in 10 years. The first was regular hypothyroidism that was solved through natural desiccated thyroid. Then that backfired on me. I got a reverse T3 problem, had to solve that by myself too, because even more doctors are uninformed about that topic. So the reason I suffered is because doctors are uninformed, like 99.9% of them across the world. And so they're using outdated 40-year-old protocols with thyroid science. They don't know what they're doing. They don't know how to treat it. They're really confused. And so I had to become my own expert to save my own life twice. I'm not sure I'd really be here by now if I hadn't done that. So that's kind of how I became an expert. And, actually the best-selling thyroid books are written by patients for a reason, because we know what it feels like. And there's only two other authors that I do recommend other than my book. One is called Stop the Thyroid Madness by Janie Bowthorpe. The website of that same name is the best website you can go to for thyroid information in general. Stop the Thyroid Madness. Then also a book by Paul Robinson called Recovering with T3. These two authors helped me save my own life, and they're the only two other thyroid books or authors that I recommend.
Awesome. That's very helpful. And I'll make sure I link that below, as well as your book. I mean, the fact that you, and I've heard your story on some other interviews and podcasts and just followed you for a while. And just the fact that you had to go through hundreds of doctors in order to,
2,000, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's unbelievable that you really had to go through so much just to get basic healthcare with your thyroid. So before we jump into the topic, if people are curious about, I don't know if I have a thyroid issue, what kind of symptoms would they look for if they are having thyroid issues that would lead them into going to get specific testing?
Well, there's over 40 symptoms in my book. Okay. So there's a lot. No, there really are so many, because here's the thing, if your thyroid's not working well, either drastically not well, or even just a little bit subpar, then you're bound to get a disease or an affliction that you otherwise would not have gotten. So now these doctors are spending their time doing patchwork operations when they're not looking at what's causing this thing. So some symptoms. So this is disproportionately a women's issue, although men get it and they're often overlooked for it. But the issues are, the symptoms are kind of the same in men and women. But with women, it might manifest gynecologically initially. So that could be miscarriages, infertility, or any kind of abnormal bleeding, polyps, fibroids, endometriosis, etc., polycystic ovarian syndrome. Any of that stuff, absolutely, gynecologically will manifest itself. So that's one major symptom for women. The other is for both men and women is inability to lose weight despite any kind of efforts. Okay. So we know, what's out there. We've tried 100 diets, right? So if nothing's working for you, despite everything that you're doing, that's another reason. Being cold hands and feet. Now, we all have no one's hands should ever be hot. Okay. No one's feet should ever be hot. Okay. So we all have a little bit colder hands and feet than, the rest of our body. But I'm talking about an internal chill, like you are always the coldest person in the room, even in the middle of summer, and you're freezing all the time. And so you can actually assess your thyroid sufficiency by taking temps. Okay. And so we do a basal and afternoon, and you can even assess whether you have a thyroid problem that way. I mean, of course, you want to back it up with tests. And then the other symptoms. Okay. So they're so wide ranging. They go everywhere from like the gynecological stuff to acne, hair falling out, loss of curliness in hair, hair breaking off, acne, any kind of skin issues, dry cracked skin on the inside index finger, particularly the right hand for some reason. Don't know why that's a thing. Restless legs, heavy legs, meaning every time you walk or you walk up a flight of stairs, it feels like your legs are heavy. And if you're out there, then you understand that. It's like concrete legs. Bloating, waking up with puffy eyes, puffy face, taking 2-3 hours to get your shit together in the morning to wake up and even get somewhere. Depression. We have more active thyroid hormone receptors in our brain than anywhere else. Any kind of cognitive abilities, the inability to remember and retain information. Like you read a paragraph and you're like, I don't know, or like you have to you can't really understand people. You're mixing up your words, hand to brain dexterity, messy handwriting. Let's say you're normally coordinated, but you keep tripping over stuff and not knocking into stuff. That's another thing. So any kind of coordination. And my God, there is, there's like 40 symptoms or something in my book, and I had like 30 plus of them. So those are the basics though. And for men, it's exhaustion, it's the weight gain, and it's also could be like low testosterone and lack of erections at an appropriate age. So the thing is that then a doctor will say, oh, well, let's give you testosterone, but they never checked to see if the thyroid was going right. And that's important because you never want to take exogenous hormones unless you get to the root, because then it'll work for a while, but it won't really work because the thyroid's in the master of the production and regulation of all your sex hormones. So if the sex hormones are off and a doctor's just checking that, they're going to try to patchwork you there. Nope. Yeah. I don't care what the ailment is. You're depressed, Prozac won't work for longer than 3 months. You're screwed. Okay, check the thyroid before you go on any of that medication. Oh, your lipids are high, your cholesterol is terrible. Nope, you go check your thyroid. Oh, I have high blood pressure and insulin resistance. Nope, check your thyroid. Oh, I have polycystic ovarian syndrome. I have an issue with infertility. No, check your thyroid. And here's the thing. The bottom line is this. This happens 100% of the time with people I talk to all over the world, and that's the following. Yeah, my doctor checked my thyroid and it's not that. Yeah. Bullshit. Let me see the test. I guarantee you they're wrong. And you know what? 100% of the time, like 99.9, I don't even remember a time where someone said that and that wasn't the case. So that's the thing. The bottom line is this. You can't get away with not knowing this stuff. Okay. So you need to understand what the proper tests are. Are they being assessed? Otherwise, you're going to end down in the rabbit hole like I did, because I had a doctor who said your thyroid's fine. Keep working out more and eating less. And so then you're going to go down this rabbit hole and you're going to all these specialists. You're going to try to patchwork up all these symptoms that are coming from the thyroid, when meanwhile you've wasted 2 years, 10 years, 20 years with doctors that keep saying your thyroid is fine and you trusted them. So no more of that shit, because that's what I did. And I really regret that. Now, to my credit, there wasn't the information out that there is now. There wasn't podcasts and even Primal Paleo Health or Carnivore or anything. So, it wasn't out there, but we have the knowledge now. You just can't get away with going, oh, I met this great functional doctor. He knows all about thyroid. Does he? Because I've been on panels with doctors sitting next to me that are claiming incorrect facts about thyroid health. Wow. So you can't get away with not knowing this. Yeah. That's the biggest message. Yeah.
I think that people are getting their TSH numbers and they're like, oh, my TSH is normal, and they don't go any deeper than that. So you have in your book like a pretty extensive list of...
I'll name it right here. Let's call it out right here. And there's a free thyroid guide on my website, elleruss.com, that tells you all of these tests. Awesome. If you haven't gotten the following test, you're with a doctor who's totally uninformed and has no idea what they're talking about. End of story, full stop. And these are the tests: TSH, free T4, free T3, reverse T3, and then 2 thyroid antibodies. One is called TPO antibody, stands for thyroid peroxidase, and the other is called TG antibody, stands for thyroid globulin. You need all of those. That's just an initial assessment. What should you get on top of that? Ferritin, which is iron storage, B12, vitamin D. And of course, there's a million other tests to go down the road of assessing what caused it. Look, some people can get a thyroid problem because they were exposed to black mold in a house. Okay. Yes. Okay. Some people can get it because they have heavy metals. I mean, there's lots of other things, but that's the basic test to go, is something whacked here? and then you go further. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. So much.
So if your doctor tested all of that, but didn't test the reverse T3, they're still an idiot. Sorry. They still don't know what they're talking about.
I mean,
they
reverse
still don't know
T3 is huge. I'm not a doctor, an expert or anything, but at least I know that one is vital. And, you know, that's the other reason I had you on is I'm seeing a lot of women and just people in particular that are turning to keto and turning to carnivore for relief from thyroid issues. And sometimes, you know, they're not necessarily doing the diet optimally for the thyroid. I think a lot of women are doing all this extended fasting and sometimes even calorie restriction, eating too high protein, not enough fat. Like there's just a lot of things that are happening that I think, you know, and this is just me as a lay person from what I'm seeing, that are making the thyroid worse. So I was hoping you could speak a little bit to some of those things, maybe fasting, too much protein, just not optimal plant, you know, some people get the plant toxins with keto. So I know that was like a super loaded, loaded statements last question, but would love your expertise on those things.
Okay. So let's kind of like
break it out.
Let me break it down. So here's the thing. Carnivore, keto, low carb, they do not cause thyroid problems. Now, does that mean that's diet's right for you? No, maybe it's not right for you. Maybe you're a person that does get screwed up if they don't have a certain carb level. Hey, listen, whatever works for you. I also have thyroid patients who are carnivore and it absolutely saves their life. Okay. They have one piece of lettuce, forget about it. Crohn's is back. So like it's absolutely legit of a diet. However, here are the problems people run into when you go keto, low carb, or you go carnivore. Sometimes their appetites are very satiated. And so they're not thinking about calories or the nutrient density. And then you kind of can get off on that, especially if you're coming from a place where you had food addictions. And so it's kind of fun to be running on that. But at the end of the day, that could be sent as a starvation signal to this whole entire feedback loop that says, hey, she's not getting enough food and calories right now. So she's starving. We're not going to give her any more of this fat burning T3. Now, here's the thing. You can't judge a thyroid problem just by levels. So if someone and by the way, there's no proof of this, but let's just say someone's like, well, I tested my thyroid before I went low carb, keto, carnivore. And then I tested them midway through and the numbers were lower. And a doctor's like, oh, your thyroid's getting hurt. Is it, or do you have symptoms? Because if you look at Ben Greenfield or you look at, Paul Saladino, their T3 is a little bit a little bit lower than the mid-range, like most normal functioning humans that are not on thyroid medication. Okay. Now, why is that? It's because they become metabolically efficient, calorically efficient, and now they're what I call T3 efficient. They need less T3. They need less of the fat burning thing to do what it did before prior to someone else who might have to be a little up. So someone might see that it's below the mid-range and go, oh, Paul, I think you have a thyroid. Ask the person. Let's look at their temps, their vitals. Do they have symptoms? Oftentimes the answer is no. So again, what's right for you may not be right for another. There's people that are on thyroid hormone replacement that have to have their free T3 at the top of the range. A doctor might be like, oh my God, that's too high. It's not too high for her. And there's ways to assess, is it too high? Again, temps, vitals, symptoms. These things are really, really important. Heart rate. So, okay, so there's that. So there's no proof there. Secondly, here's the thing. Were you already hypo and nutrient, deficient with other issues before you tried to use one of these diet modalities to, quote, fix your thyroid problem or whatever problem it was? Well, then guess what? That's not necessarily going to do it. The one time that it really would do it and would be applicable purely on that theory would be you got fat and type 2 diabetic because of a diet. And that screwed up your thyroid. And so then, yes, of course, if you become insulin sensitive and you start losing weight, yes, your thyroid function will come back. Okay. So like that's very possible. And that makes sense because that's really just someone who unbeknownst to them ate themselves into a situation that then gave them hypothyroidism. But most people are going to carnivore, keto, or some type of diet because they're like, I can't lose weight. I can't lose weight. Well, that's already a signal of something that's going wrong with your thyroid. And to expect that just a diet's going to solve that, that might be not work. Also, here's the other thing. Let's say you have, you've gone down this road, you're feeling like crap, thyroid, whatever, you go to keto, low carb, or carnivore to try to fix that. But here's the thing. Did you assess all the other stuff that can cause thyroid? It's not just diet. Do you still have silver fillings in your mouth? Do you have high mercury? Do you have a selenium issue? Do you have an autoimmune issue? The antibodies are high and that needs to get worked on as well. I mean, what are the other factors? So I'm it's absolutely insane that anyone would claim that a keto, carnivore, or low carb diet ruined their thyroid. I would be more inclined to guess that they either did some part of that wrong or it just is not for them. But diet doesn't always fix it. Now, yes, the paleothyroid solution is about a few things. It's about, look, first of all, don't run into a problem. Let's keep this thyroid working right. So optimize it. The second part of that is, all right, great. What if you have a problem? Well, let's go the natural route, try to optimize all these things. Does it work? Did it not work? From that point, you can make a decision. Okay, you know what? Maybe time to go on thyroid hormone. And then I give that option too. I take thyroid hormone every day because I die without it. So, there's nothing wrong with being on that. You're giving yourself something that you don't have. It's not a medication. Okay, something like metformin is a medication. Medications are things that manipulate your body in a way that it is not designed to be manipulated. And that's why those things have lots of side effects with it. That's why when we see those commercials, they have like a laundry list of side effects. That's not the case with something like thyroid hormones, unless you were to abuse it, but it's not a drug of abuse. So again, what are you doing right or wrong? Where did you come to this diet from? And also, I'm not buying it. I'd like to see a full nutrient and everything panel before someone claims that something screwed their thyroid up.
Yeah, I agree. I
hope that makes sense.
Yeah, the thing is, it's not as simple as this diet ruined my thyroid. This diet ruined my hormones. Now, you were saying, yes, they could undereat. That could cause their T3 to go down. What do you think about people who are to heal the thyroid, which is
people who are
trying to use fasting to heal their thyroid? I think
here's the thing. So
people are
the website.
That's okay. I know my Wi-Fi is not that great today.
So you're talking about people that are you broke up a little bit, using what? Fasting.
So I'm seeing a lot of people grouping fasting with keto and with carnivore as if they're like they're married, and I'm seeing some people with thyroid problems that possibly they get even worse with fasting, and I think it's being kind of over preached as a panacea for people of a healing modality. So I was just curious your thoughts on that. Okay, so if you already have thyroid problems and you're just using the modality of fasting, what are you doing? There's like I just talked about, there's a million other tests and things and ways to go about correcting it naturally, not just that way. So you could just completely be misguided in that realm. Here's the other thing. When you have thyroid problems, your blood glucose and your adrenals are completely off. I don't suggest that if you have known thyroid problems, you fast. Okay? I don't even really suggest intermittent fasting unless it's working for the person. Okay. So that's not going to solve it. Again, where would it solve it? When we know for sure the person likely got thyroid problems because they got type 2 diabetes, right? Then of course, yes, you want to do intermittent fasting and get them insulin sensitive and go keto and get their weight and their HbA1c down. And yes, then hopefully their thyroid stuff will be corrected. But other than that, if you're using fasting as a means to fix that, you're wrong. You actually would be better off cleaning out your diet completely and getting nutrients optimized than just fasting. I mean, listen, again, if your problem is that, well, here's the thing. Thyroid issues kind of promote insulin resistance. A lot of thyroid patients will already be insulin resistant. So, and when you're insulin resistant and you're hypothyroid at the same time, and you try to do like a low carb diet, it kind of doesn't work. Nothing effing works. And so this is like the emails and the DMs I get like every day from all over the world. They're basically like, I tried to fast, I did keto, like it didn't work, all of these kind of comments, just like you're making. And you're like, yeah, but did you look at anything else? Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, did you look at anything else? And also, again, with the way blood cortisol, here's the thing. When you are hypothyroid, almost nothing you can do will help you have a better metabolism until you're out of that state. So you have to do everything you can to get out of the hypothyroid state. Then you'll have a normal metabolism where normal fat burning occurs. So if you do a high fat, moderate protein, low carb diet, or a high fat, low carb, like super keto or even carnivore,
you're not going to be able to be processing all of that fat that you're eating. And therefore, yeah, you will have like a clogged liver. Your lipid panel won't look good. Your liver's not processing the fat right. And you'll get fat off a low carb diet because you are ingesting more fat than you're burning. That just goes for everybody. Anybody can get fat on a low carb diet. Doesn't matter whether you have thyroid problems or not. So that's the frustration, is they try to go to a thing that's a fat burning thing, and they're trying to put a fat burning thing on a non-fat burning body. Does that make sense? And sometimes that non-fat burning body has to get corrected with a bunch of other things before you would even attempt that. So I always say to people, and again, listen, if you have to be carnivore because of some autoimmune condition, or I get it, and then maybe you do have to move to thyroid hormone at some point. But if not, then I always say, look, just go with a like a modified version of a paleo ancestral paradigm, meaning high fat, moderate protein, low carb, but probably not as much fat as other people. The other thing too is that this is very hard to control, because when you have a thyroid problem, inherently you have an eating disorder. Like your adrenals are off, your blood glucose is off, you're craving stuff because your body has no T3 and energy. So it's really, really tough to maintain the willpower to not reach for these things. But you can never get, that's another question I get. Like, I don't understand. I've tried paleo, whatever. I'm still craving. I'm like, yeah, because if you're still hypothyroid, and again, you're trying to put you can't get fat adapted when you're hypo. And people are like, well, then how do I ever win? Well, you do as much as you can to correct the hypo, regardless of what that is. I don't care if it's natural protocols, detoxing from heavy metals. We talk all day about, or whatever it is, going on thyroid hormone. There's lots of different things. Maybe you just need a detox. Whatever it is, you correct the thyroid problem as much as you can first. And as you're going in that direction, you do sort of this modified version of an ancestral program with a little less fat than other people are going to be able to ingest. And you just do your best with cravings until you get better. The problem with intermittent fasting, or fasting when you're in a serious thyroid problem, is your adrenals and everything's already off. So again, you're trying to put a paradigm that can be applicable to normal people with normal metabolisms, and you're trying to apply it to a body that is not there. So the logic from the beginning is kind of faulty, or that's where people end up, because they're like, I tried it and it just made it worse, or I got fatter. Yeah, exactly. You totally got fatter because you weren't processing fat to begin with and you were gaining fat. Now you're eating even higher fat and low carb. You might feel a little better, brain might work a little bit better, but you're still gaining weight. It's still not going to solve the problem. Now, you can still solve a problem of hypothyroidism through food and diet. Of course, you always try that around first, always, like, let's clean up the diet. Let's get the new, I'm not relegating people to a life of thyroid hormone, and I don't suggest that everyone take it. And if you do take it, it doesn't have to be for life, but that's not my game, is to try to convince everyone to go on thyroid hormone. In fact, so many people just need to clean up their diet. Literally, that's all it is. But sometimes it takes it a step further. Like, you're so depleted in iron that no matter how much liver you eat, it's not going to catch you up to that. So for example, like, you could be eating a carnivore diet, your thyroid's getting worse. When you're hypothyroid, your ferritin, you can't hold on to vitamin D or iron storage. So now your iron's dropping. And so now your own thyroid, whatever's left of it, can't get to where it needs to go. And you think that you're eating this iron rich diet because you're eating like beef liver every day. That won't work sometimes when you're hypothyroid. Sometimes you actually need the supplement of iron to do it concurrently while you fix the problem. There are so many tangents to this. But I do really want to explain, like, for the most part, I do believe everybody should go in this direction. It's just that the people that are suffering with the weight stuff and that are going in this direction and they find that it makes it worse, it's because they were already in a situation that was bad. And you can't just use one modality, diet, to solve it. Does that make sense? Because I want to clear up anything that doesn't, because I get these messages every day and I totally understand, because listen, this was frustrating for me going through with it. I tried every modality to be like, why am I not, I get it. It's very frustrating because in our heads we go, well, but if we do this restriction thing, or we do this fasting thing, or we do this keto thing, it should work, right? Yeah. For everyone else that has normal T3 levels, it'll work.
Yeah, that's why I had you on, because I also get the messages daily from women who are like, why am I gaining weight? Why do I feel worse? Why am I exhausted? And I'm like, I can't give you that answer. You could have an underlying thyroid issue. You could be doing OMAD and one meal a day, like fasting yourself to death. And you're like, why am I gaining weight? Like what? And usually it is, you got to look a little bit deeper. And I'm, the part of what I'm trying to do on my channel, on my platform right now, is kind of cut the bull crap with like one size fits all. This diet's going to cure everything. It's going to fix everything. Do carnivore and your life's going to get better and rainbows are going to shoot out of your butt. Like, I think we need to be responsible and go deeper with people and listen to the people that are saying, I'm trying everything and it's still not working, So that's why I feel
it's like having, it would be like having a fungus. Okay. Let's say you have a fungus on your skin. I don't care what it is, ringworm, whatever. Let's say you get some fungus, right? Okay. So you can get the topical meds from the dermatologist and you can put them on your body all you effing want, but it won't work unless you do what's mouth to anus, unless you're starving the fungus of its preferred source, which would be sugar. Okay. This could be candida. It could be a skin fungus. Doesn't matter what it is. And unless you're killing it that way too. For example, this happened to me many, many years ago. Our beaches here, unfortunately, in California are pretty dirty. I was at a beach a lot one summer and I got ringworm on my leg. It wasn't going away. I went through 2 tubes of the medication until I realized, oh, wait a minute. I totally forgot about oregano. I use oregano P73 from North American Herbs and Spice. I put that shiz topic. I got rid of the medication, put that topically and internally, and starved myself of all kind of sugar, including fruit. Went away within a week. It had been there for months and had not shrunk in size. And I started to get concerned. No one wants ringworm to expand to your whole entire body. It was a disgusting nightmare. And what cured it? Oregano oil. So, again, and that's not snake oil type of thing. That's internal, external, plus the decision I had to make to starve this thing of its preferred, right? So there's so many modalities to all of this. Like, yeah, you could go carnivore and whatever, but did you ever really clean up your gut? Because carnivore might not have just cleaned it up. You might have had to do other things to do that first. You still have SIBO. Like, you could be suffering from these things. But I'll say this, I have clients who are on thyroid hormone medication, doing well, that are on carnivore too. And their thing with that is that when they go off carnivore, the autoimmune system, now not all thyroid problems are autoimmune, but these people are autoimmune. One has Crohn's and the other is Hashimoto's. So they'll eat like a bite of a peach or a bite of something and like forget about it. They get an autoimmune response, but they're still doing well on thyroid hormone and carnivore. So here's the thing. I know no one wants to go quote on medication, but you have to understand that this is not a shady medication. And if you don't get the thyroid hormones that your body needs, you are dying slowly. Do not stay there for very long. There's people that have contacted me. They've been suffering for 2 years. Well, at that point, it's kind of time to go on thyroid hormone, get unhypothyroid, fix all the shiz, because you can't fix that stuff in a body that's not working. So you got to get the body up to primordial baseline of general metabolism, general temperature, enzymatic processes are working. You're pooping finally again. Constipation is a big symptom, by the way. And all of these things. And then you can see maybe down the road, you get off thyroid hormone. Now, let's say you've only been suffering a couple of months. Okay, well, that might be the aggressive, like, let's do the natural overhaul protocol and see what we can do. But if you've been doing everything you can for 2 years and you've been still suffering, then guess what? Your body's in a disease state. You are likely, and this happens all the time, you get another thing you didn't have to get. You get a hormonal imbalance. You get a polyp in your uterus. You get some kind of other thing you didn't need to get. All because, so at some point, right, to that kind of person, you got to go, all right, hey, you got a choice here. How much longer do you want to keep suffering and going down this train? But here's the thing. You could try in that 2 years, like, oh, I'm going to do a detox. I'm going to do all that. Your body can't detox when you're hypothyroid. So again, the modalities you would try to do the natural protocol, if it's going on too long, then again, you got to, does that make sense?
Yes, it makes perfect sense. And it's so helpful because again, I just want to help these people out here. A lot of women really are just struggling and they feel like they're doing something wrong and that they're bad. And then that misconception of, taking the thyroid hormone as like, oh, it's a medication, it's something that your body actually really needs to run efficiently. You can think. And women are, I get women all the time. Oh, I'm cold all the time. It's just because I'm a woman. And, it's,
here's the only time, here's the thing. The only time that being cold would be normal is, for example, if you're a menstruating female that has a regular cycle, yes, a day or two before you menstruate, you get a little sensitive-y in a lot of ways, right? But that might be the time for temperature sensitivity. So for example, if someone were on thyroid hormone and all of a sudden they're like kind of, a little internally chilled for 48 hours. That's not to be like, oh my God, I'm not enough on thyroid medication. No, that's just a natural thing that happens, right? Your hormones are about to all drop. Things are a little wonky. That's normal. But it's not normal to be that person that is freezing all the time. And you know who you are if that's you. And that used to be me. Okay. And I can tell you this right now, this suffering is fixable. It is 100% fixable. So anyone that feels like they've, gone down this loop, they've tried everything you can either reach out to me for coaching, read the book, get the free thyroid guide, listen to free podcasts of me talking. You have to fix this because the thyroid is the master gland, or AKA proper thyroid hormones and the metabolism of those hormones. Everybody, I don't even care if you have a problem, should be concerned about their thyroid and making sure it's optimal. You could just have a selenium deficiency. There's so many dumb things that could lead to this. So again, there's lots of great natural protocols to try, even along with carnivore. Maybe you would have to take some supplements that if they didn't affect you negatively. Maybe you would have to take thyroid hormone. But also maybe you need to look at your calories, your macros, and if you're keto, your macros and other things to go, am I getting what I need to? And if you can tolerate a non-carnivore diet of any kind, if an omnivore diet of any kind, then maybe that's what you need to experiment with there more. There are also people with Hashimoto's that don't understand that food plays a role in this. So let's say you're paleo and you're like, well, I'm paleo and I'm Hashimoto's and I still have these high antibodies. Well, you could be eating foods high in histamines that mess up people with Hashimoto's. So you got to look at paprika or cinnamon or nightshades or, other things on the AIP list, autoimmune protocol. So people sometimes don't even know that. I've mentioned that to people like, oh my God, I put cinnamon in my coffee every morning. I'm like, well, there you go. Hello. These are things that are all discoverable. So if you have an autoimmune disorder, particularly, then diet's very important. And maybe there's something you need to key in there if you're an omnivore at this point and paleo, and to key in there and go, ooh, you know what? I need to look at some of the things I am eating and maybe need to do more of a autoimmune protocol elimination type of situation. That has really helped people. We know for sure, and I know your audience is probably gluten-free, but we know for sure that gluten 100% raises the antibodies in people with autoimmune disorders, particularly Hashimoto's. So that's one thing that a lot of people just, again, even in the non-carnivore community, people who call me and they're like, they're still eating gluten and grains and they didn't realize that this was related to their antibody function, even though they considered themselves pretty healthy overall. Maybe they just had a little bread or oatmeal here and there. They were quote healthy in general and didn't think that it was so offensive. But those things can be for people with the autoimmune version of thyroid disorder, which is Hashimoto's.
Yeah, that's so helpful. I mean, so much great information in here, and I'm definitely going to put the link below this video for your book, just so people can go and check out and stop pathologizing things. Stop saying, I'm a woman, I'm supposed to be cold, or I'm supposed to be tired, or brain fog is normal, or, we need to look deeper, especially if you're gaining weight or you're not feeling well, you're tired all the time, or you have hair falling out. That's a big one I get from women is like, why is my hair falling out? That's not normal, It's
a huge one. In my hair, I have a big head of hair. It's kind of straightened now, but I have a big head of curly hair. I lost curliness in my hair when I was hypothyroid. And then also I would wake up and all of a sudden I'd be like, what? I'd have my hair would have just broken off half. I'd have bangs. I was like, what the hell? It was the grossest, weirdest thing. And listen, I suffered for years and no one could help me. And I live in Los Angeles. Okay. I figured it out myself and I don't have a medical degree. Okay. Now there is a doctor on my book, and the Q&A in the back of my book with Dr. Forsman is probably, it's absolutely, do not miss it. Make sure you read it. A lot of people have handed it to their doctors to try to educate them, but you can't get out of being educated about this. And I'm happy to do it. I mean, that's most of what I do when I coach people around the world is educating them, helping them understand their own situations so they can help them help themselves with their doctors. Or again, some patients like me, obviously I don't recommend it, but I had to do it myself. I ordered my thyroid hormones on the internet and I became my own doctor, and I had to use doctors for blood work and then wouldn't listen to what they had to say. I shouldn't have had to do that. And I wrote this book so you don't have to. I wrote this book so doctors could get informed, and more of them are now. But a lot of them still don't understand what's up. So there's so many free podcasts on this. And again, elleruss.com, click free thyroid guide, gives you all the tests I mentioned earlier. It even tells you what time of day to take it, how to call a doctor's office to see, do they even know what they're talking about? Now, it's not foolproof. They might answer all those questions right, and you still get in and waste your copay and realize they're a moron. But I'm trying to give patients like, here are all, I wasted so many copays and so many doctor's appointments walking in there only 2 minutes in to find out they had no idea what they're talking about. And I'm like, damn it. So I was like, I would call ahead of time then after that to save myself some time and talk to their nurse practitioners and ask them some pointed questions. And depending on how they answered, I would know whether or not this would be worth my time. So that's all free. And of course, you can also buy my book as well. And again, hundreds of interviews with me talking so in depth about this, even going into the discussion of explaining the entire feedback loop. But this is so important. Like, I shouldn't have had to fix myself twice by myself. Like, I really shouldn't have had to do that.
Yeah, it's insane. But we're, all of us out here watching, and I've been following your work for a while. It's like, we're so grateful for you. And then to have put together such an amazing and comprehensive resource for people who are having these problems. And then they just keep on being told by their doctors, you're fine, you're fine, you're fine, you're fine. And they know inside, just, I'm not fine. I need to look deeper. I need to figure out, I need to go below the surface. So you also do one-on-one coaching for people as well. If there's anyone watching, is that correct?
I do, all over the world, because this is like a global epidemic. So like 200 million plus people in the world have it. It's the #1 prescription in America. That's just one type of thyroid hormone. 25 plus million Americans have it. And 60% all over the world are undiagnosed or mistreated. So a lot of people will be on thyroid medication doing well. And then some dummy doctor tests their tests and goes and using their uninformed 40-year-old outdated BS protocol brain, they go, oh my God, we're going to need to lower your medication. That happens to patients too. Patients get hurt by their doctors and are kept hypothyroid. So you can't not know about this. If you have a thyroid problem, you're going to have to learn it. And in my book, I say, listen, your brain, if you're hypothyroid, your brain's not working. Look, there's no one who understands this more than me. I've been hypothyroid a couple of times in my life. It's horrific. And so it's hard to retain the information. If you need to talk to a friend and go, can you please read this book with me and help me understand it? Get one of those friends who's kind of that person that maybe is more science-minded or something. Have someone help you understand it. Whether it's me, sometimes I talk to couples together so that like the husband can understand what's happening with the wife. There are letters in my book to employers and things like that. Like, people get fired over this because your brain's not working right. If you're in accounting, I mean, oh my God, one of my success stories in my book quit her job in accounting. She was too afraid she'd get fired because she couldn't remember numbers anymore. This is not a joke. And it's very hard and very difficult with the cognitive stuff to speak it no matter what age you're at. Nobody wants to go, I think I'm getting dumb. No one wants to go, I think something's wrong with me. I've kind of given up on my dreams. I just don't care what it's all about. That general malaise, people don't want to admit that, and then if there's someone in your family that like went crazy or like, they're then you're like, uh-oh, is that me? But you know what? Maybe your Uncle Joe had some problem they didn't fix. So let's not relegate yourself to Uncle Joe's depressing life, living with mom forever, right? So again, it's, these are really hard things to express. The mental stuff is the worst. It's the brain fog and the depression. And it's not, I just want to be clear, it's not depression because like, oh, you got fat and have symptoms. It's legit depression in your brain. We have more T3 receptors, that's the biologically active thyroid hormone, in our brain than anywhere else. This affects your neurotransmitters. You are literally depressed. They treat depression with something I take every day to stay alive. So, if you're having these thoughts and you've really just given up and you're kind of listless and you're staring into space and you feel like you're getting dumb or you feel like you're getting old, you are, because you're hypothyroid. I mean, you're like slowly dying. The accelerated aging is no joke, including your mind. You know what I mean? But it is also accelerated depression. So just know, if you're experiencing this stuff out there, and I've got, again, like 40 symptoms in my book, this is totally normal. I understand it. It's horribly depressing, and there is an end to this. But you will be wasting your time if you continue to go to doctors without arming yourself with the knowledge first to even assess whether the right person. I have lots of clients who've been successful in convincing their doctors to get the right treatment because they knew what was up. Their doctors trusted them because they were compliant. They were on it. They're doing their own research. They sounded, lucid and clear. And the doctor is willing at that point to kind of practice medicine with them when they normally wouldn't before, or they might be more open-minded to new information. Okay. Now, some of them aren't, and you have to ditch those doctors. But there are people, and that's half of the coaching I do is like, how do I talk to my doctor? Like, that's like the end of the session is like, well, how do I go to my doctor now and ask for this thing? And sometimes you got to push them. Sometimes this takes a whole nother topic with my, my new book, Confident as Fuck. But it does take some confidence, which can be really waning when you're hypothyroid. You're not at an emotional level. I also just want to mention too, that with adrenal issues, they go hand in hand with hypothyroidism. We get hypothyroidism, we often get adrenal fatigue. Those symptoms are very similar to hypothyroidism, but a few of them that are like spot on for people that out there are sensitivity to light, sound, and smells. Okay. And this one will really ring with people who are understanding this. And I mean, like, you really can't deal. Okay. So like your friend whose normal perfume you didn't care about, suddenly you can't handle being around her. You get into someone's car and they're playing music and you're like, I just can't, you know what I mean? Like you can't deal with it. Light, sounds, like let's say you even live in an apartment building. Like I lived in an apartment building at the time many years ago. And I lived on like, people lived above me and I grew up in downtown Chicago. I was kind of used to white noise. It didn't bother me. But then suddenly when my adrenals failed and I had the reverse T3 and I was really hypothyroid again, I could hear almost everything. Like it was driving me insane. I got into fights with my neighbors. It was like a whole thing. You don't have a high tolerance. So also multitasking, you become very overwhelmed. So like the idea of like, oh my God, I have to go to the store and do laundry today can make someone who's hypothyroid cry. That's usually an adrenal thing. You know what I mean? So sensitivity to light, sounds, and smells, being overwhelmed. I mean, again, there's so many other symptoms, but I just want to throw the adrenal one out there because that can happen to people even if they don't have a thyroid problem and their adrenals are suffering.
That's so helpful. I mean, all of this is just so incredibly helpful. And I feel like people who watch my channel are really going to relate and hopefully get a lot out of this conversation. And the biggest takeaway that I'm hearing from you is, don't just try to self-diagnose, figure this out alone, get someone to help. You're coaching, you have a book, find a doctor that will work for you. And the other thing I want to mention that I kind of already did is don't try to just fix this with diet. You may very well need those thyroid hormones, and you need someone to help you with those. You don't want to just go find them and take them. You need a coach, you need a doctor who understands, and that's, I think, the big takeaway message from this whole conversation is that it's not just a diet or, a specific thing. It may take a
And it's not just medication. And I want to throw that out too. So there's the other crutch, right? People are like, oh, I'll just take a bunch of T3. Good luck. That'll backfire on you. And it might even make you fat. We are Goldilocks human beings, not too hot, not too cold. If you become hyper, you have too much T3, it's catabolic. You don't want that if you're working out and trying to gain muscle or maintain it. And it also is inflammatory and can be hypermetabolic and actually make you fat at some point. So this is not a game of like, oh, I got fat, I'm hypothyroid. Oh, T3 is the master hormone? Oh, I'll just go order a bunch online and take T3. I'm telling you right now, it's going to backfire. So you have to be very careful about this stuff. Thyroid hormone also affects your heart and your heart rate. So if you were to really screw up, you could screw yourself up. Now, I've never heard of anyone giving themselves a heart attack doing this. You'd probably have to take but there are people that really misdose and misgauge this stuff. So people hear, oh, T3 is the fat burner. I'm going to just go get some T3 and start taking it. And again, if you don't know what you're doing or how to dose it, you're going to run into so many problems that could take you 5 steps backwards from being on the journey. Same with what you said. If you're just focusing on diet and you're not looking at testing or looking at optimizing other things, then you've just wasted months. You've just wasted months. So my question is, how quickly do you want to fix this? Because if it's quick, which I'm assuming it is if you're suffering, then you need to do it all. You need to look at all of this stuff. Now, some stuff is cost prohibitive, right? I get it. I was broke trying to figure this out the first time. Like I must have wasted $15,000 that I didn't have at the time trying to fix this. Okay. I mean, it's very expensive and it's frustrating. So understand that, but you can take it in stages. Like you get the base tests and then see what's up and do the best at home. Maybe you can't afford a heavy metal test right now. Maybe you can't afford to get the silver fillings out of your mouth right now. Okay. But there's something you can do leading up to that and you can prepare for that. And the other question is, how much is your health worth? Because I've had these conversations with people that keep going to the HMO doctors and they don't want to pony up the money to go to like a good functional doctor that may not take insurance and is out of pocket. And so they keep going through the system. And I've asked these people occasionally, how much is your, health worth? And they're like, oh, I mean, it's worth that. It's no amount of money. Oh my God. Well, then great. What are you doing? This is your life. You've got what, 90 to 100 years, 120 max to live.
Yeah.
What's $1,500 in your whole life? Now, you don't need to go to a functional doctor who's $6,000. Like, there are cheap, find maybe an economical situation for yourself, but what is it worth? So maybe you need to borrow some money to get that silver filling out of your mouth because you have heavy metals, and whatever it takes. Okay. But at least so you can take them in stages if you don't have the money. But also the point is you do everything you can to get out of this. And you just have to keep persevering and you will get there. My work and the reason I'm out here doing all this stuff is because I would like you to go from A to Z way quicker than I did. And
Mm-hmm.
other people, it took them 20 years. Some people suffered for 40.
Mm-hmm.
You will, this road can be quick. It can be very quick. Sometimes people can get completely fixed in 8 weeks, 3 months. Some people, depending on the, cluster of all of the things and how long they've suffered, maybe it takes a year. You know what I mean? But really, what's a year in the grand scheme of someone's life? Like, that's really not bad compared to all of the time you've been suffering.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah. Well, this has been absolutely amazing. And I'm going to put all of your website, book, resources, everything below so people can contact you and work with you if they need to and want to. And so I really just appreciate your time today. Thank you so much.
my pleasure. And just hang in there, everybody. It's so fixable. And I know your pain, but I'm telling you, when you're on the other side, it's even better. You'll be grateful you had it because a lot of people don't know what it's like to suffer. And I do think in a way it's a little bit better because there's a contrast. So when you feel normal again and you're healthy and you're energized, like, the gratitude is so exponential beyond that you'll never, you know what I mean? And so there's a silver lining here, but once you get there, I'm telling you, you'll just be like, life is going to be even better than what you thought it could be.
I love it. Well, thanks again and appreciate your time today.
Thank you.
All righty.